Going. We're going to be working on this guy. We're going to take him to the next level, I think. I have a lot of the line art here. And yeah, I'm just going to upgrade him. And we're going to talk and hopefully going to learn, as, I'm talking here through the process of kind of upgrading this guy. So the line art is here pretty much. We got a lot of the stuff in here. Everything else is going to be more like, proportional based or what can we do to increase, the readability of this guy, because I think right now he's a little bit hard to read and I'd like to kind of fix him up a little bit. So it's cool coming back to drawings and stuff with a fresh eye. I'll just like start noodling away at random stuff here. It's cool coming back to like stuff with a fresh eye because you end up getting a kind of, it's kind of like you're drawing on somebody else's drawing sometimes when you take a break. You come back and you're like, oh, okay. You see maybe some of the stuff that you don't like. You see some mistakes that you want to repair, and it really does help like quite a lot. Just getting away and resting from your drawing at some point, and that's kind of what I did with this. And I'm just trying to like figure out like, okay, like what can I do? Like right here, I would say his waist needs to be thinner. So I'm trying to make this over here look like a backpack or something, or at least push it back a little bit, because right now I'm just thinking like, I don't know. Like I said, he just needs a thinner waist. His proportions are just too clunky if that was his waist. So right here, what I'm doing around this area is I'm drawing a thicker line right here, right? Making it thicker in order to have all this other stuff fall back. Don't even know what's in the back there. I more or less just kind of was using simple shapes for kind of the robot stuff. Obviously, the majority of what's going on with it. Thank you for the hearts, by the way. I really appreciate that. Helps a whole lot. Thank you. But like, obviously, like a big part of this is, how do you make it readable to the user? That's going to be almost always my focus. And it's funny too, because when you think about like certain things in art, a lot of it, and by the way, I can ask this as well, by the way, you guys can tell me in the comments, or, do you do art more for yourself or do you do it for others? Because I've met artists who do artwork and they just keep it secret. Like I've heard that a couple of times where they're like, oh, I draw, but I just kind of, put them under my bed and I don't want anybody to see them. And you know what I'm saying? And then, like that kind of stuff. And I'm like, for reals? Like I do stuff to like put it out there, when I'm done to know that like, I was like, yo, I spent my time on something. Can you take a look at it? Give me feedback, or thank you for the hearts, by the way, again. I put it out there for general feedback or even mild enjoyment, right? That somebody else gets out of it, even if it's just like, oh, cool, like a 2-second thing, which to be honest, that's most of everybody's art, right? It's just this like quick, satisfactory thing. But like I do it for both, right? I'm doing it for my own personal self-satisfaction. It totally does. It gives me a sense of purpose. It lets me know that, I, have this kind of skill that not everybody can do, and it's fun, right? In that sense. And yeah, it just lets me know that maybe I was left here on this earth, right? It gets you like some form of evidence when I'm gone one day, these things will be floating around a basement, or I don't know, they'll be somewhere, or they'll be loose on the internet. Thank you for the hearts again. But yeah, okay. So right there, I need this to recede in the back. I almost want to like fill it in, but I'm not going to fill it in. That'd be too hardcore. But I can kind of like give it a little bit of shadow. I'll give it more shadow than it needs, right? I'll just fill it in with information just to kind of give it a little bit of that. It's funny too, because when you do this stuff and you work with complicated shapes, there's this moment, and I've talked about this before in a couple of different videos, so forgive me if I'm going to say this again, but there's this moment where you're kind of like, dang, this is a mess, right? I've talked about it in the last one too. It's like, oh man, like, there's a point where you just start getting stuff's getting so complicated, and I would say it happens, to be honest, like 80% of the time. If I'm doing something complicated, maybe like this, 80% of the time, it's like, there's an ugly stage where it's just so gross, and you freak out, right? I've talked about that in the other one before. You have to calm yourself down when you get to that point. real quick. See, now I'm trying to draw a lot of. It's funny. So I'm trying to draw smaller parts here, and the reason I'm doing that is I want it to fill in the value of it. So like I want it to be like when you squint your eye, you really can't like like you can't see it. That's funny, but it like falls back right into space right here, and then this stuff kind of comes forward. That's kind of my little plan here I'm doing. Other than that, like I said, I just started. I mean, I've always drawn robots a little bit, a tad, but it's been my goal. I would say the last couple of, I would say the last month, hard month right there, that I've really tried to get my tech, like better in general, just to like upgrade it. And I think it did well. I think I did upgrade it a bit. I think I'll go through another upgrade later, but yeah, like I'm pretty happy with like doing like tech that slightly looks a little bit more, you know, to my liking, I think. Like as far as like it looks slightly convincing or it looks complicated enough, without looking like a ball of trash. Kind of, but like I said, anybody who knows anything about like, maybe engineering or something like that would be like, ew. But again, these things aren't made to function. They're made for style, largely based on human anatomy, right? I'm thinking of like the shoulder over here. That looks like the deltoid. That looks like the chest area generally. I notice a lot of like these Gundam style robots have this kind of like flat chest right here, like pops out. It's like down over here, out. I see that a lot. Thanks for the follow, by the way. I appreciate it. I see that a lot with these Gundams or Gundam style things, these mechs. And it makes sense, But I would say it's a little bit different than humans. I know a lot of people have like broad chests and stuff like that, but it like really comes out. And I remember having to adjust for that because sometimes when you're drawing something in general and you're trying to get better at it, you have to kind of test yourself, right? Like it's time to put away all the reference. Well, if that's the goal, if the goal is to draw without reference, trying to put away the reference and try to test yourself and see how much of the thing you're learning to draw you can draw of it. And yeah, that would be, that's what I tried to do a lot of times. And then later on, it's almost like you're actually doing some sort of like test in school. You have to put all your notes away and figure out what you know. Okay, let me look at his body here. Okay, I think that's, I wouldn't say sufficient, but it's all right. I throw a lot of dark over here. I'm trying to make it like go back into space here. All right. Let me look over here at his chest. What else can we do? The cool part is we already have a lot of the main plates here, so I can just keep adding random junk. So right here, I could be like, all right, I'm gonna add that random shape right there out of nowhere. Line right there. I can just do that, and it looks okay, right? Because we're pretty much making up our own rules as we go along for all this. Let me see what else. Let me see. I think this guy needs to be... Hold on, sorry, my book here. All right, let me see what else I can do. I want this. So we talked about lines before. Drawing a thicker line. There's a 1, 2, 3 rule, and I've talked about this a bazillion times, but there's line 1, line 2, line 3. So line thickness. So line 1 would be thin line, And I think most of this is like a 1. I guess in some universe you could call it like a 2, but I'm gonna call this like a 1 line, right? Thickness. Then there's like a 2, which is the one I put right here. It's a little bit, it's darker. It could almost be a 3. And so I want to put like a 2 over here around his chest because I want his chest, I want to make it obvious to the viewer that this part of his torso is closer to us than everything else. I forgot about this right here. Thanks so much for the likes. I appreciate it. So I want to make it obvious that this part of the chest is closer on this side. I don't even know where this is right here. Dang, it's like, it's funny because you're trying to, oh, okay, I know what that is now. It's funny because you're trying to deal with your own drawings and like the inconsistencies will come out. You're like, dang, like where is this inconsistency? I'm trying to like mirror it over there. Okay, so right here now, we're gonna go over here, draw a thicker line right there. That's a number 2 line. And what that number 2 line does is it makes it, again, obvious that this hunk of his body, you're trying to separate it from that back arm in the back there. You get it? See how this is over here? And he has his arm, but that's behind him a little bit, right? Thank you for the likes. I appreciate it again. You guys are beautiful people. Thank you. That helps a lot when you guys do that. Um, over here now, let's go up and maybe put a little bit right here as well. And I'm doing this again for that effect. And because when you're drawing so many lines, it's kind of like starts to become a little bit confusing and you get lost in your own stuff. And especially if you don't have like a solid like if you don't have these solid rules like figured out for your I don't know for your figurine or something like where so for example this is his torso right here and then that's the back of his arm. But if I was kind of like iffy on like what is where, right, it's gonna start to get very dangerous very quick for the artist because then once you get lost in your own drawing, it's I mean, like I said, it gets tough. It gets tough, honestly. It's very. Thanks for the likes. I appreciate it. Once you get lost in your own drawing, it's like, dang, bro. Like, how are you gonna pull that back? All right, let's zoom in his face real quick, and I want to see if I can do more in his face. Let's zoom in a little bit. All right. Okay, let's see if I can do a little bit more to his face. What can I do here around his head? I definitely want to darken out the eyes a little bit around there because that is the window into the soul, kind of for everything humanoid related, right? You're always going to have a little bit more dark there. I think it's complex enough here on the face mask. And like I was saying in other stuff, there's places of complexity and then there's places of simplicity. If you look over here, see the helmet over here? It's kind of a big space relative to here, right? The only reason this stuff right here, that's all small, looks kind of complicated is because of this. You're judging everything by contrast. So this goes for light and dark as well. So like when something is incredibly, incredibly dark, right? Everything else on the page is gonna look pretty light in comparison. And the same thing goes for this. So like you have these large areas on his shoulder, large areas, and then in, comparison, areas like in the neck here look more complicated. And it makes you think like they're more legit, pretty much, like that's kind of, like, oh, wow, that took time to do that. And it translates. You're just like, oh, okay, that's some complicated machinery. I'm not sure what it does, right? But if this right here on the helmet, and let's say this, and let's say this, let's say there was a bunch of little networks all over that, and a bunch of little networks in the hat, and you fill up almost every little thing, it's going to be too busy. It's going to be a giant, it will literally be a ball of trash at that point, It's going to be way too much. And then it's not really going to convey what it is to the viewer, right? Because that's who you're trying to, not, how do you say this? I say like, that's who you're trying to impress, but I mean, that's who you're showing it to, right? You want someone to look at your drawing who's not an artist, right? And go, oh, okay, I know what you're doing, right? That's kind of like the goal, like at the very least, right? You want them to know what they're looking at. So yeah, always remember that. It's kind of like tension and release or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like complexity versus relaxation. Your eyeball is complex, it's thinking, it's working right here, maybe, even the armpit or whatever, and then it's relaxing up over here in these areas. So always remember that. Because I think the impression is that everything has to be complicated in everything, and maybe in real life, to be honest, in real life, I think that rule still stays true, right? Like when you look at cars, I think they have these large, like beautiful areas on the outside, and when you look in on their engine, they're like, whoa. I think that has to do with most of design. Even I think music. Thank you so much for the roses. Oh my God, thank you so much, Bella. But even when it comes to things like music, I've heard that similar as well. It's not just da 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 da, right? It's usually there's like a melody and a tone. I mean, I don't know. I've listened to a lot of metal, so sometimes metal can sound very complicated and dense. But you want your stuff to be a balance of denseness and not denseness. All right, let's go back over here into the neck. What else can I change with this? I can probably put a little bit of a thicker line over here as well because I want this to come forward a little bit. And maybe we'll draw a little bit right here. To be honest, a lot of stuff is kind of more or less done. I'm just kind of going through and, adding baby details. Thank you so much for the roses, Diamond. Oh my gosh. Like, for example, maybe we could put like some of the screws showing, but you also got to remember that if you have like some screws or something like that showing, you want to put it more than just the helmet right there. See, I just put it down. Now that's like a design language thing. Maybe I can throw them right here. Maybe like 1 or 2. It's going to be all over the place. Where, like sometimes people, there's the aesthetic of like hiding the screw, for example. Like if you look at your iPhone, I've talked about that before. They hide, or like the Mac, anything Mac related, right? They hide all the screws and where they drill them in. And it's a certain aesthetic. I know sometimes you can draw a bunch of screws and you can have all kinds of, cool, like, I don't know, maybe more rustic. It just depends. Like, I don't know how to even say that out loud right now. Sorry, it's late at night. But, yeah, like basically design language. When you make one rule somewhere, you kind of want it to carry over to different parts. It doesn't have to carry over everywhere, by the way, but it can carry over for a couple of different things. Let's see. Let's go down the body here. I'm not digging the abs. I mean, I guess I'm okay with it right here. I just feel like something's missing. Maybe like I can throw some sort of exposure, like maybe like right here, and then maybe I can throw something exposed underneath, right? Maybe some wires down here or something like that. Yeah, maybe something like that, right? And not all this, like I said, all this stuff is just, yeah, there you go. Maybe like it looks like there's something underneath there, and we're not quite sure what it is. Like a lot of this stuff doesn't have to make like a bunch of sense, since we just want it to make design sense, right? Let me see this right here. Same thing over here. So if this is kind of seeing through, I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I know everybody asked me this too. It's like these shapes I'm making right now in there, people will ask me, is there a thought behind what I'm doing right now? And the answer is kinda. Kinda. I'm just putting simple shapes, but I'm also putting a little bit of shadow so it looks like it's a little deep in there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a little in there, right? And it's not receiving as much light. That's kind of the answer to that. Like if I was to redraw this guy, I mean, chances are maybe some of these shapes and forms would change. Thank you so much, Diamond, for the roses. Oh my gosh. Like chances are if I drew this guy again, I would change stuff up in little different ways. But I would say the overall structure, though, is something that I was thinking about beforehand. As far as like, like a typical Gundam structure, obviously it's is it bipedal, right? Where you're walking on 2 legs. I want him to be, more or less like in the cool robot mode, right? Like again, deltoid's head, typical human structure. I think that stuff's cool. I want to do more, to be honest. This is actually, honestly, not gonna lie, this is my first one, I think, like this. I've drawn little ones in sketches like this, but I've never like fully just kind of sat here and just kind of drew it. I mean, I'll be honest, I did some of this on a previous live, but then I did a bunch of this in the library. I was just sitting there kind of doodling. I think because sometimes it's easier to just put the book in your lap and draw it. I don't know, that's the way I am personally. Anyways, I just wanted to go live today. I'm going to go live a lot more. I was going live every day at one point, but I got really busy with a project. But anyways, that's kind of it. I just want to come on and kind of work on him a little bit. So it should be the last live with this guy. Let's zoom out a little bit. Thanks so much, by the way. Full on community. Thank you so much for the comment. But anyways, yeah. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow. If not, I'll see you in a few days. Wow. Will you be doing body parts? Oh, yeah, at some point, for sure. Definitely. See you guys later, though.